All right, good afternoon. I want to welcome everybody to our Monday, August the 24th, site-based committee meeting. I hope everybody's doing well. We're ready to begin. So we'll start off here with the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Thank you. At this time now, we'll go ahead and we'll move on to give you guys a minute or two to check out the July minutes. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share that with everybody so we can see that as well here. So let me go ahead and find that. I had that on here. Let me. Everybody go ahead and view that. Everybody able to see the July agenda?
Yes.
The screen
Yeah.
okay.
Make a motion, we approve.
I have just one quick question.
Yeah.
In the old business where Ms. Bushley had asked for a roll call of the vote, was
Yes.
the intent of the roll call to list the members who voted for versus against? And the only reason I'm asking that is, obviously city council things like that makes a difference to people when they vote for people in the future. I didn't know if we were supposed to be listing the members who voted one way versus the other. If we don't care, I don't care. I just am asking a question.
That was not the intention. It was just more for it to be noted that we had one person who dissented.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, then I'll second approval of the minutes.
All right. Next is our good news report. I'll start off with have some good news to share in terms of our class of 2020. We had another female student who earned her final credits and is now a graduate of Dayton High School class of 2020. Excited to announce that she'll be recognized at our Board of Education meeting this Wednesday, the 26th. So that's good news for her and for the school. But most importantly for this student who's really worked hard to get to earn her diploma, finish his credits, and has overcome a lot of obstacles. So kudos to her. Also, just like the good news is just that we are finally at the point where we're ready to open school. And I know it's been a lot of twists and turns along the way, and happy to announce that we have a plan that's been shared as here's what we're doing. We're starting on August the 31st, and so we're excited to announce that and to think that we're a week from today, we will have complete our first day of virtual school. So that would be more good news to share. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share in terms of good news report? No other good news? I guess I'm the only one sharing good news tonight. Okay. At that, we'll go ahead and we'll move on then to public comment.
Can I ask a question in public comment?
Absolutely.
In relations to the this week, your open houses, are people expected to be there for that full amount of time, or is it just like going to take a small portion of the time? That's several questions I've gotten from other parents. Is this something like it's a controlled thing where you come in at whatever, if you say 4, that you're there till 7 the whole time, or are you going to be there for like 5 minutes of that, 10 minutes of that?
We open up those time frames to try to give flexibility to people that are working the different parts of the day. Part of what we shared, there's a to-do list for the parent and student who's coming in, or guardian and student, and once they've gone through those, there's about 9 different items, I believe, listed on the to-do list, and once they've completed those steps, they can exit the building. So I wouldn't think that anybody would be here more than 15 to 20 minutes would be my guess. So we wanted to make it as convenient to people as possible, and that's why we have that window from 12 to 7. So that's the idea behind that. Great question.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, thank you, Mr. Woods. Next, just moving along here then to the student achievement part of the agenda. At this time, there's really nothing to report, considering we are not in classes and don't have any new data to share. So we'll go ahead and move here next to the school planning. Just a couple things I would just like to share in regarding school improvement. Phase 1 is August 1st through October the 1st. And that's just the continuous improvement diagnostic for schools. So we've already started work on that piece. Phase 2 runs from October 1st to November 1st, and that's more of the needs assessments for schools, school assurances, the school safety report. So there's 4 different phases. I don't know if I should read them one by. I'll go ahead since we're through phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 3 is November 1st to January 1st. And includes your comprehensive school improvement plan, the executive summary for schools, closing the achievement gap diagnostic for schools, and then professional development plan for schools. All will need to be worked on. And the last phase is phase 4, which is January 1st to the following December 31st, which is just progress monitoring. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and share with you the 4 different phases of our continuous improvement timeline with you this evening, or this afternoon, I should say. Okay, any questions about that at this time? Nope. Okay. Next, moving on, is the budget report. I'll give you guys a few minutes to review that and ask any questions you might have. I did speak with a couple of our teachers who have requested some different funds, and the one in particular I'm thinking of, I asked them to provide us a report of what their needs are and what the costs are. There were some requests for some books, some different things that this teacher has used in the past at their prior school, and I said that would be something that you should bring to our site-based committee. I did not get that, but maybe I'll share that with you if that's turned into me sometime here in the next few days. Okay, so just kind of an FYI, I shared with them that we do have plenty of funds for things like that we do need, but that would need to be approved through site-based.
So Scott, is that something that we'll get, that we'll make a decision on the fly for, or will it have to be brought into the next meeting? I'm just looking at, will this person have the supplies they need as they start the school year?
That's a great question. I would prefer this person to have it to start the school year, and that's why we asked them to meet tonight, but it did not get taken care of. So I will follow up with this teacher, and then when I hear back from him, I'll share with you what I've learned. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And and keep in mind, we also have quite a bit of funds from last year that we were not able to use that they kind of waived and are allowing us to use this year. The amount was in excess of $12,000. So there's some funds there to use as the committee feels is appropriate and needed.
I know we talked last time about using some of that $12,000 surplus for potential technology things that we're going to need for whether we're doing virtual or hybrid. And I had a couple of ideas that I've talked to Mr. Wolf about already, but wanted to bring it to y'all's attention too. One of them is for ACT prep, but that doesn't really serve all the students. It would only serve juniors. So I'm not sure if that's something we would want to consider. But there is something that could affect all students, and that's access to Vocabularycom. If we could get some sort of school partnership with them, and Rick's trying to get in touch with them now, but I don't know where those funds might come from, but is it possible that we might be able to use those if we can't find them somewhere else?
Yes, that would be up to the committee. If the committee would agree to that, that would be a decision that the committee is allowed to make, is my understanding.
So Brad, why wouldn't the ACT prep only affect the juniors? Is it because you're looking at a controlled type of thing where you would only be teaching it to the juniors, and it could be utilized outside of the classroom?
Yeah, so we have dedicated class time for ACT prep for the juniors specifically, because all juniors are mandated to take the ACT in Kentucky. So I suppose there could be a possibility we could open it to other students, but I think for the situation that we're in, I was imagining it would be something to help prepare the juniors specifically during this weird time. It would depend on the service that we ended up going with, the capabilities that they had. Whether or not we could
quoted either one of those.
Say that again.
Have you quoted either one of those two options, the cost of either one?
Mr. Wolf is in the process of trying to get that information nailed down. He's already reached out to Vocabulary.com, I know. And we tried to set up a meeting with a company called Torch Prep, which would be for ACT, but I'm not sure where we stand on that.
We've used Torch Prep in the past, and that was something that we did a few years back.
Do you remember why we stopped using them?
Yeah, we partnered with them and Bellevue to work with 30 of our juniors, and using Torch Prep causes a lot of, we found it more beneficial at the time for our kids to work with our own teachers and have our own teachers have the ability to motivate them and work with them, because it takes a lot of internal motivation for our students to go to those Torch Prep sessions, just because they give you homework a lot. I know they were giving our juniors at the time a lot of homework, and then we were coming back to the meetings and they weren't always doing that homework. And but that's not to say we can't revisit it again. I'm all for revisiting options for our students.
I'm gonna go run my report.
Is there another provider for ACT prep that might be more appropriate our population? Have we looked at any other online prep?
We
companies?
could. I have not reached out to Torch Prep yet, but it would be something to look into. I do know Torch Prep now. I just know this just from following emails and things of that nature. They're doing a more web-based approach because they've always done like they would have different sessions like Weekend Warrior, and you pay a student or parent, you know, Ms. Bushley, you pay $400 for Nellie to go sit in a class on Friday night, Saturday morning, and Sunday morning to improve her ACT score. But now they're doing more so with videos. So I'd have to look more into that as to what they're doing. So, I mean, it's a great program. I sat through many of the classes. We just had, for some of our population, you know, you take our population, we have about a third or closer to a half of our kids that are definitely going to college and want to go that route. The KDE says that all of our kids are taking the ACT. So, and we have like a third or closer to a half of kids that know they're not going to go to college and they want to go to, you know, be a welder or go logistics or something like that, which is wonderful. And they don't necessarily need an ACT score. So they're not necessarily motivated or want to do a course like that, right? Or they're not motivated to do all the homework that they're asking them to do, because it is a lot of homework that they ask the kids to do for those programs. But we can reach out to them and see what all options they have, or if they have different people that offer it. Because I do think something, you know, if we can find something that would work for our kids, I think it'd be a good idea. So I did hear, not to change the subject completely, I did hear Vocabulary.com, if that's something that everybody would be interested in, a 1-year subscription to that would be $1,520. Now it does, like 2-year subscription would be $2,746. However, I have emailed them and asked if they offer like individual teacher licenses. If that's something, like I know Brad is interested in it, right? So if Brad would like to use that, that would be great. So I'm waiting to hear back from that. He just sent me what a quick breakdown of a 1-year full license for the whole school would be.
So it might be something that if Brad and say 4 or 5 other teachers were interested in having Vocabulary.com, where it was, you know, $1,500 opposed to $2,700 for the school wide. So we kind of need to get the number on how one is. That what you're thinking with the licenses?
Well, I think it would be good to look to see if they offer individual teacher licenses, and see. I would like for, say, Brad. Let's say Brad, Aaron, and Angie. Like, hey, we need you 3. Let's work with Vocabulary.com. Let's see if it works. Let's see if our kids like it, as opposed to purchasing a full-year site license for it, and Brad, Angie, and Aaron are the only ones that use it all year long and no one does. Then we're like, okay, that's great that those 3 used it, but we have unlimited amount of seats and only 3 teachers are using it. So I'm waiting to hear back. $1,500 is not a lot of money, especially, Scott, you said there's $12,000 left that remaining from last year, so you may want to use those funds for that. But it would be nice. He may come back and say, oh, it's $300 for 1 teacher license. So I'm just waiting to hear back. I just got this email from him on my way home from work.
I apologize for the ignorance, but can you tell me what we get with that? Like, what does Vocabulary.com do?
Brad knows a little bit more, Brad, if you wanted to. You knew some things I did not know when we talked the other day.
Yeah, so Vocabulary.com, I've used it for the past year, a little bit, year and not quite a half. And basically it's a website, and all it is vocabulary terms, which sounds really boring. But it's somewhat interesting because you can create lists of vocabulary terms that correspond to whatever it is you're teaching at that time. And you can have the students practice those, and it will give them questions about the vocabulary words in different ways. So like it may say, If tree is the vocabulary term, it'll use it in a sentence and ask you, which one is correct, or it'll show you a picture of a tree and ask you which picture is the tree, or it'll give you the definition. So there's different ways that it goes through it. And then you can also do other things like it makes a competition, like a game out of it. It's called a vocabulary jam, where it automatically divides the class up into 3 or 4 teams, and they compete against each other on their knowledge of the vocabulary terms. And then on top of that, Vocabulary.com keeps track of all the words that students have mastered from your class, from your school, from your state, and you can compete with schools and students all across the world on Vocabulary.com. So I've used it mainly to have students practice vocabulary for upcoming unit, and then we would have a competition. We would play a vocabulary jam, and the students seem to engage with it pretty well. The only thing that you don't get with the free version is the statistics on the back end. So I can assign a class to study a list of vocabulary terms, but I can't see that they've actually done it. So I couldn't give them a grade based on their practice of it without those statistics. And another cool feature is there's already thousands of lists already created, so a teacher wouldn't necessarily have to take the time to create a custom list. You could simply, like, for example, I'm creating a unit on imperialism right now, and I was able to find a couple dozen lists that had already been created by history teachers about American imperialism in the late 1800s. So that's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Anything else for discussion there in terms of the Vocabulary.com or any other budget questions?
And
I just have the same question that I have before about when are we going to make this decision so that if he's going to utilize these, he gets to use them sooner than later.
And were we going to send out a survey to staff to see what their needs were?
My understanding was that department chairs were going to talk to their departments. I reached out to my department, and nobody needed anything at this point other than we are looking at some transition curriculums, but that was based on just a meeting from today. So I don't have quotes or anything together yet. I also wanted to just bring up, there's an app extension to work with Google Classroom that allows a lot more things to be self-grading, called Book Widget. And that's something that you can do individual teacher licenses or site licenses for as well. So at some point when we make this decision, if people want to take a look at that and see if they think that's something that would be useful to our staff just to help keep up with volume. And it allows you to pretty easily transform paper pencil assignments that you already have existing into more interactive digital activities, and a lot of those being self-grading so that you can get feedback to kids quicker.
We did send out a note to department heads last month, I believe, on a needs assessment. I haven't really gotten a lot of feedback. It probably might be good. I just wrote a note down here I probably need to ask again in terms of whatever else, other needs they might have. So I'll probably contact each of the department heads again shortly.
I remember in math, I think we were asked, but it was more like supplies. We were thinking like rulers and things that each kid would need on their own when we thought we were going to be in class.
Yeah,
That's the way I took it as well. We were like, instead of having a class set of markers, we would need an individual set.
Now that what school is going to look like to start the year, it might be what people's needs or what they would have asked for a month ago when we thought school was going to look a little differently. Might be different, so it might be a good idea to kind of go back and ask that again. Okay, so I can make sure I do that. I've written that down on some notes. Glad to send out. I'll ask our department heads. I'll send an email out to them again tonight, asking them to kind of assess what their department needs again. Now that we know schools can be starting off virtually, if there's something else that they would like to see. Okay. Anything else in terms of budget? Get a motion?
Do we need a motion if we're not doing anything, just to accept the budget?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to accept the budget.
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. Next is just the committee reports, and this month we don't have any committee reports for the month, but looking at September, and Mrs. Bush, she was kind enough to set up a schedule for the school year, and one of the things we talked about in one of our previous SBDM meetings this summer was setting up times for our committees to report this year, so it's looking a little different this year, so excited about that. For the month of September, we'll have our first committee reports will take place. We'll invite our special education and library departments. And then our first committees to report will be the Culture and Climate Committee and the PBIS. Those are the committees that are on tap for the month of September. Then we'll proceed from there with October through April. Okay. Next here, I'm going to go ahead and share with everybody. This was in our share with you policy 1.01. This is what we currently have in terms of policy 0.01. So in the note, the message that was sent out to everybody on this past Friday, we would let you know that we're going to contact KDE and KASC and KASC, I should say, and kind of find out what the policy looked like at this point, because it's been since 2017, I believe, that this was updated. In fact, the last it was revised was October 26th of 2017. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you now what we learned today. Let me see if I can get that on here. And like I said, we are now making this more fit to our needs here. So let me find this. Okay, so here's policy 1.01. It was also shared with you all just a little bit ago, a little earlier today, but this is what it looks like here. And I give everybody just a couple minutes to kind of look over it, and then we can begin to discuss policy 1.01. During the 2019-2020 school year, we were able to go through and look at all the bylaws. So as we talked about in our SBDM meetings, that this year we're going to now start to focus on some of the policies and making sure that we're up to date and try to see if we can get through if not all of the policies for the school year. Would be a great goal for us to have. If we can't wrap it up during the school year, because there's quite a few, then we'll follow into the next school year. But we'll make sure that we are taking a look at each of these, and that we don't have policies that are outdated and need to be brought up to speed, so to speak.
I have a question. In reading this proposed policy, there were several places where it talked about the community and staff and everybody having access to curriculum documents. And I wanted to ask what specific curriculum documents we need to make sure that we have out there so that we're transparent with that. Is that our individual teacher curriculum maps, or is there something that we put together by department?
So I can answer that. So I have already started working with Casey and pulling curriculum timelines, because on this policy that was sent to us, there was a spot that said insert your curriculum documents names here. And I believe that was up on the first page that Scott was going through. So yeah, underneath curriculum documents. So that second line there that says the curriculum timelines can be found on the school website or reviewed in the school office. So we put that in there, but before it just had a note that said insert your school's curriculum documents names here. So I have already started uploading the 2020-2021 curriculum timelines to our website. And I am going to be reaching out to teachers who I do not have access to those yet or do not see them, and they will be posted there. Now, I'd said to Scott and Chris, you know, if I would love it if a community member would come in and say, hey, let me look at curriculum. I could talk their arm off for days. And so we could share timelines, and we could share unit organizers, we can share pacing guides, we can share many documents. But as far as just like an overall big picture, we just thought to put curriculum timelines on there because that just gives everyone a big picture of what's covered in each class. And if they really, really wanted to talk about our curriculum and they wanted to see more, they're more than welcome to come in and talk to us about that. That's fine. But we just thought that was a good start to post those.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah, and I've already, like I started, I pulled English 11 and 12. I have those linked to our website, and I'm going down through, and really the biggest part for me is just navigating how to upload things to our website because it's a different format than I've used in the past. So if that wasn't as difficult, they'd already be up there, but just working through that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Scott made a good point, and you guys have all heard me say this in trainings before, but I'll tell you again. So, you know, there should really, and Scott you guys went over the bylaws last year, which is a good place to start, especially anytime you have a new principal. But now we really need to start looking at policies, because there should not really be any policies. If you look at the previous 3 principals, there should be policies with Ryan Kellinghouse's name on them. You know, he was just principal 2 years ago. But like Jeremy Dodd, there should not really be policies, because there should be something we review on a continual basis. Even if it's something that we're like, yep, we're not changing this policy, it's good, move on. So that's why it's good. You can see what our first policy of this said, our original curriculum policy, compared to what KSC recommends. I mean, it's not even remotely close, and that's just been 3 years. So that's why it's important to do this.
Should we go down here, Mr. Wolf, and take a look at the discuss the what is required by the legal requirements here? You think that's something we need to discuss, or?
Well, just anything that's in bold on this policy is legally required. And then you can see what it says, law in a box. That just basically says that per that KRS statute there, we're required to have a policy on curriculum. And so that's what this is. But if you look through the document, you know, what's in bold are things that were not in our previous curriculum policy. There are, under other requirements related to curriculum, there are things such as writing policy, which we have that needs to be updated. The other 2 requirements there, you know, we must include instruction about the Holocaust and other acts of genocide. We will be adding that to a policy. Same thing with financial literacy, that will be added to a policy. And then that last bullet there, you know, if a school has adopted a human sexuality curriculum, then has an adopted curriculum, the abstinence education must be included in the curriculum. So that says if and is underlined. So we need to look into, are we supposed to, or are we not supposed to? But the two above there will definitely include those. Was just eye-opening to me to see everything that was in bold that's required that was not in our previous policy.
Appreciate the explanation there, Mr. Wolf. You join us tonight.
Sure.
As far as the needs assessment that it says was required by November 1st, I know we normally do kind of a PD needs assessment toward the end of the year, but this is talking specifically about curriculum. Have we started looking at how we're going to address that legal requirement for the needs assessment related to curriculum?
So Scott, scroll up to the page right above this. So one thing that right there, the principal role, the one thing that we put in there, and maybe we should or could, you guys tell us what you think, add more information here, but you can see number 3 there. We adjusted that to just say, you can read that, I don't have to read the whole thing, but basically it says that weekly PLCs, we will hold discussion on curriculum revisions. Teachers will revise their documents throughout the year and at a curriculum professional learning session over the summer, and that they will report the results of those decisions to the curriculum committee by September. So we kind of made that fit us, because previously what that said did not fit anything that it talked about different dates that were not required below. So we put that in there, and we kind of thought, you know, if we're making the recommendations by September, we kind of thought that fit the legal requirements of that November 1st needs assessment, because we feel like our teachers are continuously looking at those documents and we're continually having those discussions, which that may not happen in other school districts. But to answer your question, Ms. Bushley, that's kind of how we address that. Do you guys feel we should add something else in there?
Now, if that constant review that's going on in PLCs meets the legal requirement for that needs assessment, I think that's sufficient. I just didn't know if they needed us to have, you know, a formalized form for a needs assessment or something. I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, and we thought that would be good too. And I told Scott, you know, to put what he's going to find out. I always thought this was site-based. There's so much information in our bylaws, so many dates in our policies. We almost need to keep like a running tab of like, okay, in September, a curriculum committee this needs to be reported to the curriculum committee. And then maybe we do put in there, which I'm not opposed to at all. You know, teachers will report the results of those decisions to the curriculum committee by September, and the SBDM council by November 1st. Maybe we could throw that date in there, because that is a legal requirement. That may not be a bad idea at all. So we can add that in there. So not that I have all the answers, but any questions or thoughts on this curriculum policy? All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sorry. At this point, we're now going to move on to our next part, which is old business. I did not have any.
Hey, Scott, not to stop. Scott, we have to make a motion to approve a first reading of that policy, and then we'll come back at next meeting and have a second reading.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of policy 1.01 related to curriculum.
I'll second.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. There's no old business to share. So at this point, we'll move on to the new business. And I'm going to go ahead and just pull up here just kind of go through what our schedule is going to be and clear up any questions anybody might have. Starting next week, obviously, next Monday, August the 31st, will be our first day of virtual class schedule that will be implementing. So you can see on Monday and Wednesday the times and the bells that we will have in terms of asynchronous. In terms of synchronous instruction, which is essentially live and meeting together. And then the asynchronous term is just simply means that work they'll be doing outside of the Google Teams meetings, if that makes sense to you. So next Monday, our very first class will begin at 8:45 and go to 9:25. And if kind of how we arrived at the schedule, just kind of make sure everybody understands, is we have 37 juniors and seniors that are enrolled in Gateway for dual credit classes, and essentially their online classes are locked in at Gateway, so they start at 9:30 to 10:45. There's a few students have some different times than that, but by and large, the vast majority are locked in between 9:30 and 10:45. So it made sense for us to start on Mondays and Wednesdays for those kids to make sure they have the opportunity to be in those classes, to start at 8:45, the first bell ending at 9:25, so they have 5 minutes before their Gateway classes begin online. And Gateway is online, and they started this past August 17th, so they have been in school now for a full week. And of course, the students who go to Gateway, they do not have second, third flex here at the school. So that was the idea behind that. We also have our students, there's about 30 students as well, to go out to the ATC, which is vocational, and they begin classes virtually on August the 31st. So that way, this really reduced the amount of conflict those students. So that's how the times were set. And if you were wondering why on Tuesday and Thursday we start at 12 instead of in the morning like that, it's simply because of those, like I mentioned earlier, the times that are affected by our juniors who go out the ATC in the morning, and then also, like I mentioned, the dual credit Gateway students who take classes at 9:30 to 10:45. So by doing this, we're able to make sure that by setting the schedule up in these times this way, we're able to make sure that the kids will be able to have their classes. And of course, there's a few outliers. We're gonna have to work individually with them to set up classes, but this worked best for the majority. And then on Fridays, that'll look a little different, where teachers will be setting up meetings with kids. We'll be having PLCs. Students will be allowed to come in if they choose, and the teacher's comfortable to come in and meet individually or in small groups, depending upon what the teachers and students' needs might be. So this is what our virtual class schedule will look like, and this will run from Monday, August 31st through Friday, September 25th. At this time, the governor has indicated that this will go to Monday, September 28th is when it'll be, I guess they'll be checking to see how things are progressing and how things are going during this pandemic, and then we'll get an update as what the schedule would look like at that point. Okay?
Yeah. So Scott, how will parents know what their children should be working on, say, for instance, your asynchronous and your like Friday all day? Like, what kind of communication is going to be going out directly to the parents for them to be able to help support the teachers and making sure that their students are doing the things that are supposed to be being done while they're at home?
Well, that's a great question. A lot of the communication, we're hoping for a great turnout at our orientation meetings. The teachers have information, things like that, to share with parents and students on how to get logged into their classes, what their classes are going to look like, what the expectations are. And then we're looking to share a video toward the end of the week, kind of having some explanation to try to clear up any confusion that parents and students might have, so to answer some of those questions for them. So we're trying to hit them in terms of, hopefully, like I said, we have a great turnout for orientation starting Tuesday through Thursday, where we're able to answer those questions and clarify. And then we're also going to be putting together a video that will be shared out at the end of the week that also explains that as well.
Hey, Ms. Gonzalez, one other thing that I would note is that every single one of our teachers has been asked to use Google Classroom for their learning management system. And part of the reason for that was so that we had one central location that parents with their student could go to see communication from the particular teacher. So part of what Mr. Myers is talking about is parents familiarizing themselves with how to get logged in themselves and to be able to monitor their particular student and what their student's doing during NTI.
One of the things at orientation, they're going to get a green packet, and there's a whole packet of information that talks about using Google Classroom. And so they'll get the information, they'll have something in their hand, and they'll also be visiting with the teachers. That's part of their to-do list, is to go to the teachers, and then to make sure the teacher will go meet with them and make sure that students are able to get logged in, ready, so they're able to go on Monday and then answer any questions they might have at that point.
Okay. I was just asking because obviously a lot of these parents are still going to be working, and then to have them having to juggle different areas and trying to get logged into things while they're also trying to work, it's going to be a challenge. And so I'm just curious how that's going to go, if stuff's going to be pushed to parents or if they're going to have to go out seeking for it.
Well, one of the goals. Go ahead, Ms. Bushing. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say one of the newer features that I found in Google Classroom as I was setting mine up in the last week is that they now have a guardian report feature where parents can request, or we can push out an invite and they can accept or not accept that invite, to where the guardian report will be sent every week automatically through Google Classroom, letting you know what assignments are missing and things like that. If that would be helpful, we could potentially talk about utilizing that new feature as well.
Yeah, Google Classroom is nice. I used it when Julio had his surgery to keep him on track with all of his classes, and it works very well. I was just curious if I know that was a push that was sent to me, like kind of one-on-one, and I didn't, because I was asking and being proactive about it. I was just curious if something like that was going to be utilized.
You felt like as a parent that it was pretty user-friendly and
I did think it was user-friendly. Now, I didn't have pushes. I had teachers on the side that were kind of sending me like an email push or something that said, hey, he needs this and this and this, that would outline what I needed to work on. And then I would, later log on and look and check things behind them to make sure. I think that it was helpful to me, but I also can see in the busy work world how it would be a lot for somebody to try to log on to that and find out for all the different classes that a student would have, all the things they need to follow up on.
Angie, there's also a to-do list in Google Classroom that will list all the subjects. So like if I'm enrolled in 6 classes, it'll list all the assignments that have not been turned in or completed on a to-do list. I know my son's been using it. That's the first place I go to check and see what has he not worked on yet and what do we need to get turned in.
Okay. So in the orientations, are we walking parents through that by any chance?
I plan on it. Yeah, we're going to get all of our have them join all the classes while they're there, so they're in. And then we were talking today about even kind of a sheet just to make sure they have something to take home with like usernames and passwords on what different accounts they'll have.
Okay.
Hoping this really takes the I'm very optimistic it's going to take some of the stress off of the parents, and their students are going to benefit greatly from this approach compared to last year. So I'm excited about getting this started, and I know our staff has worked very, very hard to get ready for this, and we've spent quite a bit of time during our PDs over the past 2 weeks doing things of this nature to get prepared and ready to go. And I think that I think it's going to be a much better situation than it was this past spring. So looking forward to a lot of great growth for our students. Any other questions about the virtual class schedule?
No.
Okay. We'll go ahead and then move on here to the our orientation for the next beginning tomorrow night, and this is just the schedule that was shared and just kind of explanation of what orientation is going to look like, device pickup over the next 3 nights. And as you can see here, here's the schedule, letting them know what grade level, where they enter the building, the times that they can come, etc. Hoping this is should be easy for people to follow. And then you can read the rest here. As I mentioned earlier, one thing to talk about, this is the orientation checklist, Angela, we were mentioning, and this is what they'll actually get a sheet that just has this exact thing here. So when they come to the school tomorrow night, for example, you'll see here grade 7 and grades 10 will be coming in. It shows you grade 7 will come in. They'll enter on the Clay Street side. Here are the times. Grade 10 will come through the front of the high school, and it's the same times as well, 12 to 3 and then 4 to 7. And of course, if somebody shows up in between there, because that's the only time they can come, we'll take care of it. But then it comes down here. This is the orientation checklist that they will get an actual sheet with them. There'll be somebody outside the school where they'll go ahead and they'll take their temperature and make sure they're masked, and then they will come in. They'll be handed the orientation checklist sheet, and then they'll come into the building, and they'll get their school device, and they'll just follow straight through here. All right, so steps 1 through 9, and once they've completed all 9 steps, and like I said, it's hard to tell sometimes, but it shouldn't take more than 15 to 20 minutes for somebody to follow through that, unless I'm miscalculating. But I'm guessing take 15, 20 minutes in that range to come through, go through the checklist, and once they've completed the checklist, then they can go ahead and exit the building. And this, the device pickup orientation information, this was sent out through an email. Parents should have received. It's on our Facebook. It's on our school website. So, and also those of you that follow me on Twitter, I made reference to it as well for just kind of letting people know where they can find this information, so that we're hoping we have a great turnout this week, and we're ready to go come Monday.
One quick question, Mr. Myers.
Yeah.
On number 7 on your orientation checklist, it says sign on to Google Meet with each of my child's classes. Should that be Google Classroom?
Yes, it should. Okay, so, and like, that the staff knows I should know that, and they'll be walking the kids through that. Right, Mr. Is that confusing for you, Mr. Campbell, or is that what you're expecting?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to create
Yeah,
a Google Meet until it's time for us to meet.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions about the device pickup orientation for tomorrow night? Again, that'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week, and looking forward to that, and it'd be nice to see some of the students and parents as well.
No.
Okay. Are we ready to, if there's nothing else,
Motion to adjourn?
motion to
Second.
adjourn? We got a second?
Yep.
All right, we're good. All right, I want to thank everybody, and we'll look forward